If the PM's election campaign could be summarised in just 5 words, they'd be...
Jobs, 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 jobs and jobs.
And the opposition leader's gaffe on Monday fell right into Morrison's lap.
National unemployment rate at the moment is, I think it's 5.4. Sorry, I'm not sure what it is.
He thought unemployment had a 5 in front of it, not even a 4 in front of it, and it's going to a number with a 3 in front of it.
But today, the ABS confirmed March's unemployment rate remains steady at 4%. That's despite 17,900 extra
jobs
created last month.
Technically, the number is 3.95, but obviously it's rounded up to 4%.
Youth unemployment was down a full point to 8.3%, while the participation rate remained at 66.4%.
A youth unemployment rate at 8.3% compares to 12.7% under the Labor Party. If you think that's luck, you're wrong.
But in the face of rising inflation, Labor says the figures hide a bigger problem.
We're not getting the real wage growth that we need to see in the economy.
The unemployment rate isn't the best measure. Underemployment measures people who want more hours. When you add that rate on top of the unemployment rate, you get what's called the underutilisation rate. It's probably a better measure.
Women are disproportionately impacted by underemployment, with 7.8% underemployed compared to 5% of men last month.
There's more people than ever in Australia working multiple jobs. And they're not necessarily doing it because they love to do different things. They tend to be female and the jobs tend to be paid less than average. That's how you know that they're doing it, because one job isn't enough money to keep a roof over their head and food on the table.
Economists predict the jobless rate could still fall below 4% before the election. But will Aussies actually be better off?
Australian workers like those kids in the back of the car asking, are we there yet when it comes to wage growth? With the government, the Reserve Bank in the front promising we are. But wage growth has been so slow and so wrongly predicted, and it means people are going backwards.
We're joined now by Social Services Minister Anne Ruston. Minister, economics tells us that when unemployment is low, such as we have now, wages go up. But that's just not happening now. As far as real wages go, we haven't seen that for 5 years at the very least, possibly 10. What lever do you actually have that you are going to pull to fix that?
Well, I mean, the unemployment rate that we saw today, I think on just about any measure, is good news for Australia and good news for Australians. And, you know, this comes back on the back of, 1.7 million jobs created over the term of this government, but most particularly the 375,000 jobs that have come back since the start of the pandemic. But I think the really important thing about addressing what people have in terms of dealing with cost of living is the money they keep in their pocket. So obviously things like the $30 billion worth of tax cuts that have gone into the pockets of 11 million Australians and 3.6 million Australian businesses are the kinds of things that make a difference to people's ability to be able to maintain their purchasing power. So do I take from that, Minister, that you have no plans that will help increase wages? You're merely just going to use tax cuts and say that, there you go, that's your present? Look, not at all, not at all. I mean, we have a plan for a strong future for Australia, because that strong future will be built on a strong economy.
So what do you do about wages then? What is this lever that you're pulling? I'm not sure what it is.
Well, I mean, clearly we are seeing a tightening in the labour market. Today we've seen, as I think Minister Roberts said, 3.95% unemployment rate. And we will start to see a tightening. We know already that people are moving from jobs. We're seeing people moving from lower paid jobs to higher paid jobs. There is definitely tension in the labour market. But importantly, we have a suite of measures with our strong plan for a strong economy going forward, which include things like making sure that we have got the jobs for the future, making sure that we've got the training in place through our job trainer program, so people have got the skills to be able to accept and take on those higher paid jobs that will come available through the infrastructure spends that we're making in the economy going forward.
But the only problem with the theory that, eventually the labour market will catch up with unemployment and what will happen is wages will go up is you've been saying that for about 10 years. And that's just not what's happened. I mean, the last 5 years we've had basically no wage growth, and the 5 years before that it was anemic. So at what point, why should we believe that this moment will somehow crystallise and come into existence?
Well, I think you need to look at what we've been through in the last 2 years. You have a look at all of the economic indicators that are in place now.
But it's a 10-year problem, Minister.
We have been through for the last 2 years a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. On the back of that, we've come out with an unemployment rate that we've seen sustained today at 4%. We have investment in training and jobs to make sure that people have got higher paying jobs going into the future. But we have seen a tightening of the labour market, and we have seen a shift in the labour market. And pleasingly, we've seen in areas like youth unemployment, significant drops in the number of young people who find themselves unemployed. So I think that the market is responding to the times, and we will continue to make sure that we put the incentives in place to make sure that Australians have a strong future. And the most important way of giving them a strong future is making sure that they've got a job.
Minister, the government promised a federal corruption watchdog would be set up in the current term, yet we still don't have one. Are you disappointed that that key election promise has been broken?
Well, I don't believe that the key election promise has been broken. We have
but you haven't delivered on that promise, Minister.
We have a very comprehensive piece of legislation that has been out, that people have been aware of for over a year. We would be more than happy to bring that legislation into the Parliament, but we will not be bringing it in to see it destroyed by those people that would seek not to support it. So the offer is on the table to the Labor Party that we were more than happy to bring in our fully worked up legislation to introduce a Commonwealth Integrity Commission into the Parliament, and we would be very pleased to do so with their support.
But isn't it the job of government to put forward workable legislation so you can deliver up the key election promises that you put forward at the last election?
Well, we believe that we do have a workable proposal that is contained.
But that's clearly not the case because you're not delivering on that key election promise, Minister.
Well, we have a piece of legislation. It's out there for everybody to see. It's fully detailed. It's extremely comprehensive. The Labor Party have been wandering around with what I think one of my colleagues described today as a couple of pages of fluff in relation to what they're proposing. What we're saying to the Australian public is that we have a piece of legislation that will deliver the ICAC or the Commonwealth Integrity Commission that was promised, and we would look forward to bringing it forward when the Labor Party is prepared to support it.
But the very definite problem you have, and that was shown today with the many, many questions that were put forward to the various ministers who were out on the hustings, is that it is believed that you broke this promise. And so voters are looking at the government and thinking you can't deliver on the promises that you put forward. So how can they believe what you're putting out in this election?
Well, I would say to anybody who's listening today, to say to them that we have not broken our promise. We were absolutely committed to providing the legislation to enable us to introduce the Commonwealth Integrity Commission. We did that, and we stand ready now to be able to put that to the Parliament with the support of the Parliament. We are not going to introduce something into the Parliament that is going to fail, and at the moment, without the support of the necessary numbers in the Parliament, we would not be able to get that legislation through.
So will you make sure it's done in the next term if you are re-elected?
Well, obviously, the matter would have to be assessed when we have a look at the makeup of the next Parliament. I would also say that I think to the Labor Party, if the people of Australia give us the honour of being returned as the government, then I think that would be sufficient mandate to say to the Labor Party, you should be supporting what we've put forward because we've taken it to this election and the Australian public will have spoken.
Minister, we are out of time. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.